Boy, do we have a lot to talk about this evening. Hey everyone, it's Eric here with the Valley's most in-depth weather forecast video, Weather for Weather Geeks. If you're new to this video, we do these each and every evening during the week, and this is an opportunity for me to get into a lot more detail than I have time to get into on TV, where I'm limited to just a couple of minutes per weather segment. So before we get to the severe weather risk on Friday, let's quickly review today, because this was a pretty impressively chilly morning this morning. We got down to 43 at the airport this morning, not near the record, a very impressive record for this deep into June. 35 set in 1980, but some communities did see a 39 or 40 degree reading at the start of the day today. The air mass remains pretty darn dry by summertime standards. Anytime, I kind of use 60 as the magical number, anytime the dew point's below 60 in the summer season, that's what most people consider to be pretty comfortable. It's a real bargain. We've had dew points in the 30s and 40s over the last 36 hours or so. That's about to change. The air mass is much more humid, much more moisture-laden off to our west. And this more humid air is going to quickly push in by the second half of the day tomorrow. That's one of the ingredients that we'll have in place for thunderstorms to come together, and thunderstorms can feed on this rich moisture source that we're going to have by this time tomorrow. The beginnings of a multi-day severe weather episode, ongoing right now, as of 7:03 p.m. out across the upper Midwest. Severe thunderstorm watch out for parts of Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin. This doesn't look like a whole lot right now, but I'm expecting things to kind of reload as we head through the night. You'll see that on our high-res model here as we go into the night. This could be quite a bumpy night for parts of Minnesota, Iowa, northern Illinois, Wisconsin, maybe parts of Indiana, maybe parts of Michigan, and even northwest Ohio. But by daybreak tomorrow morning, this will likely be weakening as it comes south and east. So we are not concerned about severe weather from this initial line as we go into Friday morning. In fact, this will weaken enough that it may not be much more than a few showers as we go into the mid to late morning on Friday. Then as we head into the midday hours, into the afternoon, you're going to notice a jump in how it feels outside, the humidity levels. It's going to feel much more humid at about 2 p.m. as compared to, say, 8 or 9 a.m. As this front pushes east, this much more humid, unstable air mass will continue pushing east. As we head into the afternoon, storms will start to fire. Now, this is just one run of one computer model. It is certainly not the answer key. The radar will not look exactly like this tomorrow evening. So don't look at this and say, oh, it's all missing us to the south. Actually, I don't necessarily believe its overall depiction of things here tomorrow evening. I kind of suspect there'll be more activity at this point, about 8:54 p.m., a little bit farther to the north and west. But despite this not being the gospel by any stretch, it will give you an idea of the timing and perhaps aerial coverage of the thunderstorms. They won't be in each and every place all at the same time, but there'll be some clusters here and there. There might even be a couple of discrete lines of storms. Storms may kind of congeal from clusters into bowing lines across parts of the region as we go into the early evening. So hourly rain chances. Don't forget you can get these anytime on the Storm Tracker 21 app by tapping on hourly down at the bottom of the screen. The first round of showers, most likely mid-morning, tapers off. We get an early afternoon break, and then the rain chances increase pretty rapidly late in the afternoon into the evening on Friday. Another ingredient in the kind of severe weather cake tomorrow, what we call a low-level jet. Usually we think of the jet stream as up near where the airplanes fly at 30,000 feet. But sometimes we get a fast-moving ribbon of air just above our heads by a few thousand feet, and we'll have a pretty potent low-level jet overhead tomorrow. And what will this mean? It means a couple of things. This will increase what we call the wind shear in the atmosphere. It will also make it so that any thunderstorm that gets up on its feet and gets pretty tall in the sky, it can tap into those strong winds up at about 5,000 feet, where the wind could be blowing at 60 to 70 miles per hour. That storm, the downdrafts from that storm, if it manages to get going, could bring down some of those winds from a few thousand feet above our heads. So, because the ingredients are looking pretty good for some places to have severe weather tomorrow. This is what the Storm Prediction Center did with their outlook this morning for the region. If you think of the severe weather scale, the risk scale, as a 1 to 5 scale. Far eastern Ohio, western PA, we're in the yellow coloring. We're in what we call the slight risk, or a 2 on a 1 to 5 scale. From about I-77 on west into the Columbus area, Dayton, Lima, places like that, they're in the enhanced risk, which is kind of a 3 on a 1 to 5 scale. Overall, the severe weather risk somewhat higher to our west and to our southwest, but that does not mean that the risk is low around here. It is certainly notable. One of the things that is notable for tomorrow is the tornado risk. Now, these numbers seem pretty low, right? 2%, 5%, what's the big deal? And I've gotten a few comments to that effect on Facebook today. Well, you have to keep in mind that on an average day, our risk of having a tornado within 25 miles of any location in our part of the country, it's like 0.15%. And so a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles of any spot is over 3,000 times more than an average day in our part of the country. So it's significant. 5% doesn't seem like a big number, but we only get days like this a handful of times a year where the risk is this high of isolated tornadoes. So, don't poo-poo this too much because these numbers seem kind of low. All right, reiterating the timing. We're thinking 4 to 10 is the main 6-hour window in which thunderstorms will have the most potential to be severe. Could something happen outside of that 4 to 10 window that, is significant, a feisty storm, even a severe storm? That's possible, but it's most likely between 4 and 10. Ranking the risks overall, by far and away, the number one risk from any storm tomorrow is going to be wind damage. And keep in mind, and I often say this when talking about severe weather, that wind is wind. And what I mean by that is a thunderstorm that has a huge microburst or a downburst that produces a 70-mile-per-hour wind gust will cause the same amount of problems as a low-end tornado. You do not have to have a tornado to have massive wind problems. So even if we have 0 tornadoes across the region tomorrow, if you get a couple of storms that have some real strong winds, we're going to have power outages. We're going to have some instances of damage. So wind is number one. These storms, if they get tall enough, can tap into some of the cold air aloft and produce some hailstones. And then below that, I would put the isolated tornado risk. Again, it's elevated. It's something we have to mention. It's not 0, but the risk of a tornado, of course, is smaller than the risk of seeing a storm that produces wind and hail. And then I would also include tropical downpours as a possibility in any storm. And, once we go into tomorrow evening into the overnight, the risk for severe weather will rapidly decrease in our region overnight. But the chance will still be there of some residual rain and thunder, and especially to the south of our area, closer to Interstate 70. Pittsburgh, Columbus, Zanesville, Cambridge, Dayton, Cincinnati. There could be an increased flood risk by tomorrow night and even into parts of Saturday, because in those areas, residual showers that kind of just hang out for a while, and some of them can be pretty heavy, the risk is pretty high in those locations. But it's not 0 here. Again, be on the lookout maybe for some real gully washers at times, even lingering into tomorrow night. And then the flash flood risk on Saturday is a little lower, but it's still something we have to talk about, especially from Youngstown south, down towards the West Virginia Panhandle, into the Pittsburgh area, back towards Columbus, etc. In that zone, any storm on Saturday, that's the zone where any storm is most likely to produce a real Florida-like downpour. All right, we prepare you. We try not to scare you. If you've been watching my content for the last 8 years, you know me by now. I'm not a hype artist. I'm not someone who gets his kicks off of scaring people or anything like that. But when the weather looks potentially significant, potentially dangerous, we're going to talk about it. We're not going to just brush past it because we don't want to hype it. We're not hyping this. This is a significant severe weather risk. But if you prepare and you make sure you have a plan, then that will increase the chances that you and your family will be just fine. Make sure that you and your family have a plan in case severe weather strikes. Make sure you have a safe place in your home. Lowest level. Basement's great. If you don't have a basement, interior room, away from windows, that is the place to be. And we always want to reiterate that we want everyone to have multiple and redundant ways of getting warning information. I always recommend NOAA weather radios. Most people do not have these. Even in very tornado-prone areas like Alabama and Kansas, unfortunately, most people don't have weather radios in those locations, even though they really should. Even in our area, very inexpensive. You can run to Walmart and get one for 25 or 30 bucks. Outside of a NOAA weather radio, Storm Tracker 21 app, we love it. We take good care of it. We put a lot of time and effort into that app. and we think it is the best local weather app you're going to find for our region. Whether you have our app or not, if you have a smartphone, whether it be an iPhone or an Android device, you have an option on that phone for toggling on what we call wireless emergency alerts, or WEA, W-E-A. Go into the settings of your device and dig through the settings app a little bit, and you'll find WEA and make sure that it is toggled on. The government will activate WEA in particularly dangerous weather situations. And of course, tomorrow evening, assuming we have enough severe weather across our region, we're going to have you covered with live streaming coverage online throughout the evening. Notice on that list what is missing: tornado sirens. Now, when I go on my tornado siren rant, a lot of times it kind of feels like, judging by the comments, that I'm kicking everyone's dog. People defend sirens quite a bit. But the reality of the situation is that sirens are an outdated and unreliable means of getting warned about significant weather. They tell you absolutely nothing. And they're not designed to be heard indoors. They never have been. Just because you can hear a tornado siren indoors does not mean it was designed to do that. And so there are many, many better ways and more reliable ways of getting warnings outside of tornado sirens. On the list of best ways to get warnings, sirens are down the list, number 5 or number 6 for most people, with just a few exceptions. And yeah, there are some exceptions, but it's a pretty small list of those exceptions. So that is my siren rant. All right, let's talk about the weekend, and let's try not to make this video too much longer. As we ended the day on Saturday, the ingredients for severe weather will be somewhat lower, but enough of those ingredients are still there, still a very moist and humid and warm air mass, that any storm that does pop up Saturday will have the potential to be locally strong, especially as we get into the afternoon. Again, severe weather risk Saturday, not as high as tomorrow, but it's something that if you have plans Saturday, and a lot of people do, late June Saturday, weddings and parties and all sorts of things, you want to make sure you're checking the weather forecast often between now and then. Then, after a potentially stormy end of the day Saturday, things are looking better on Sunday. This front, this kind of stalled, stationary front, will kind of wash out on Sunday. And we do think that this will be a less active day, most likely dry, although pretty hot and humid. The severe weather risk for day 3, that is Saturday. The risk, again, lower, but even though it's just a 1 on a 1 to 5 scale, make sure you pay attention to the forecast on Saturday. And then for Father's Day, yeah, likely to be dry, but check out the temperatures, near 70 by mid-morning and into the mid-80s in the afternoon. If your dad is like mine and likes it hot and sticky, they'll be pretty happy, I think, with Sunday's forecast. It's going to be hot and humid into the day on Monday, but then relief from the humidity. Another pretty sharp cold front will come through Monday night, perhaps some strong storms with that. And behind that, the dew points drop for at least a few days during midweek. All right, 13 minutes, that is long enough, but I wanted to make sure that we covered our bases on weather for Weather Geeks this evening. Thanks for sticking with this video, and thanks as always for watching, and look for more updates from me throughout the course of this evening, and of course on Friday as well.